Don't sleep on Sleeper, but do be warned that Sleeper might put you to sleep. That's kind of what Sleeper does. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. I'm your host, Amanda McKnight. If you want to talk Geek Speak with me elsewhere, check me out on Twitter at VampX13. But for today, here on Top 10 Nerd, we'll be talking about the child of Venom, Sleeper, who is a pretty unique symbiote who also has a strong bond with Eddie Brock's son, Dylan. Join me as we count down the top 10 Sleeper symbiote facts you need to know. Number 10. Child of Venom. As was mentioned in the intro, Sleeper is one of the symbiotic offspring of Venom. This pregnancy was not forced by a villainous science corporation like the Life Foundation. Sleeper, however, is the youngest child of Venom, who at this point has 7 spawn total. 7 babies! That's a lot of babies. Although not including potential cloned offspring, if you want to consider them that evolved from a piece of Venom, such as Mania. Although I guess you could also kind of consider Mania more like Venom's cloned sibling. Oh man, spider things and clones, they just go together like bread and butter. Venom's children, from oldest to youngest at the time of this recording anyways, are Carnage and the Batch 5 forcibly harvested by the Life Foundation, Scream, Agony, Riot, Lasher, and Phage, and then of course, Sleeper, little baby Sleeper. Number 9. A difficult birth. Venom had a challenging birth even when it came to bringing Sleeper into the world. The symbiote was aided by Dr. Steven of Alchemax when it came to bringing its new spawn Sleeper into this world. But the birth was so challenging that Eddie Brock also decided to basically lend his help. Sleeper was the first child of Venom that Eddie was actually somewhat aware of when it came to Venom being pregnant, and was kind of the first child that they had together as more of a unit. Although Venom avoided telling Eddie about the pregnancy, only confessing after it was revealed that they were about to spawn. Of course, Venom was kind of like, you know, I kind of thought you knew, I kind of thought you felt that this thing was happening, but guess you didn't know, and I was kind of scared to talk to you about it. Seeing the difficulty that Venom was having in giving birth to Sleeper, Eddie decided to lend his strength to the symbiote to help it with the birth, choosing to remain bonded with Venom while Sleeper was being born for basically as long as he possibly could, despite being warned about how dangerous this actually was to Eddie. Although eventually Eddie would separate from Venom in their final moments of childbirth. Of symbiote birth? I don't know. Technically Sleeper is still a child when it's born. No? It's just a symbiote child. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to show love for us and our channel on other platforms, head on over to Facebook where you can show your support by giving us a follow and a like. Number 8. First appearance. Sleeper made its first appearance in 2018 in issue 165 of Venom. The symbiotic character was created by Mark Bagley and Mike Costa. Initially, when it was born in issue 165, it wasn't actually given a name, often being referred to as the child or the child of Venom. During the series Venom First Host, which came out in the fall of 2018, a few months later, the newborn baby would take the name of Sleeper after bonding to Eddie Brock in order to go on an adventure to basically save Venom. Its name comes from its power to put others to sleep using chemicals that it can produce. A fairly unique power, and you know, that's not all Sleeper can do either, so talk a little bit more about that later. Hang in there on the list to hear more. Number 7. Venom/Brock family tree. The cool thing about Sleeper is that they are not just a child of Venom, but also in a way they're kind of a child of Eddie Brock. Eddie was present when Sleeper was born, and of course chose to remain bonded with Venom during most of that birth. Because of this, and also because Eddie was a primary host to Venom and later to Sleeper, the Sleeper symbiote thinks of Eddie like a father as well. So really, Sleeper has a symbiote father and a human father, and is also kind of like the love child of the bond between Eddie and Venom. Although to be clear, symbiotes reproduce asexually, so Eddie wasn't really involved in any kind of like genetic participation when it came to Sleeper's creation and birth. Dylan is Eddie's son, and Sleeper also thinks of Dylan as kind of like a human brother of sorts, which is also pretty cute. Number 6. Protective parents. Initially, it was believed that the birth of Sleeper was unsuccessful and that the symbiote was actually stillborn. However, 2 pages after this misdirect in issue 165 of Venom, we learn that Sleeper is actually alive and well, thank goodness, and is under the care of Alchemax and Liz Allen. Eddie and the Venom symbiote decide to leave the newborn in Alchemax's care to be studied, but only if the testing done is all non-invasive, and under the expectation that they will get to visit Sleeper twice a week to spend time with the child and make sure it is being well looked after, and of course to give it proper guidance as it grows up, like like all good parents try to do. Pretty cute stuff. Venom also stipulates that Sleeper is not to bond with the host at such a young age, as they consider this could damage Sleeper's psyche and misguide the child before it is actually more sure of its sense of self. In fact, even when Eddie later bonds with it, it's kind of like, I don't think we should bond yet. I don't think you're ready. You're a baby. You don't even have a name yet, Sleeper. Number 5. Telcar. Telcar is a perfect example of how bonding to Sleeper can be less than ideal, let's say. Telcar was a Kree kind of baddie when it came to the story of Venom and Sleeper anyways, although Telcar's kind of a complicated character really. He bonded with Venom and forced the symbiote to stay merged with him against his wishes. As a result, Eddie Brock with Sleeper and Mlans attempted to rescue and stop Telcar, who wanted to retrieve a bioweapon and ultimately tried to destroy all of humanity. In the end, Venom was freed from Telcar's control, rebonding with preferred host Eddie Brock. Sleeper later ended up bonding with Telcar and in essence basically lobotomized him? Sleeper then basically piloted around the brain-dead body of Telcar until Telcar was attacked, roused from his brain-dead state, and basically died while merged with the symbiote because he was attacked, leaving Sleeper to puppet around Telcar's corpse for a time. Yikes. Number 4. Mlans. Also, I'm just gonna apologize if I'm not saying that right for all my Skrulls in the chat. Obviously I have not met very many Skrulls in my life, and I feel like I'm always messing up Skrull names, so sorry to any Skrulls out in the cosmos. Mlans was a temporary ally of Sleeper and Eddie Brock, and in a way of Venom. Mlans was a Skrull soldier who had at one point captured Telcar, keeping him as a prisoner and treating him pretty cruelly. She was part of the Skrull warrior group known as the War Sisters. Eventually Telcar escaped his captives, killing all of Mlans' War Sisters in the process. Also, for those of you that don't know, Skrull and Kree, not right now in the comics, but in general, usually hate each other because they're usually at war, and they were at this time. Mlans later attempted to hunt down Telcar, who had come to reclaim the Venom symbiote. As a result, Mlans teamed up with Eddie Brock and Sleeper in their pursuit of Venom and Telcar. Sleeper would bond with Mlans in order to save her life. When she parted ways with the saved Venom as well as Eddie Brock and Sleeper, she said that she hoped that she would never meet them again. The next time she met symbiotes, it actually went very poorly, so I feel like her wishes here make a lot of sense in retrospect. She would later be killed by a different member of the Clintar who was under the influence of King in Black Null and was bonded to her comrade, a Super Skrull who went by the codename of Virtue. And this was after actually Skrull and Kree decided to put their differences aside and make the alliance. So both of them were working for Emperor Hulkling and Talos. Number 3. Flying solo. Sleeper actually prefers to not have a host at all, or if it has one, to basically be in full control almost at all times. Sleeper isn't a huge fan of bonding or merging with others, and is somewhat unique in the sense that it actually has no need of a host really at all. We've seen other symbiotes go without a host in recent years, by the way, but the initial explanation for why symbiotes like Venom even merged with the host at all was because without one, and without certain chemicals produced by the human brain, they would basically starve and die. In fact, this was also why Venom was always threatening to basically eat people, and why Venom developed an obsession and need for chocolate. Sleeper, however, does not seem to need a host at all, producing humanoid or other forms independently without actually needing to be merged to anybody, not needing a host to survive. This could be because of Sleeper's chemokinesis powers. I mean, technically, if it needs any chemicals, could it not just make those chemicals itself? I don't know. I don't know if we've ever gotten into that, but I just feel like that's an explanation that makes sense to me. Number 2. Hank. Hank is probably the latest host of Sleeper, at least I think so, because Hank was like 2021 and it's only 2022 right now while I'm recording this. Although, as we said earlier, Sleeper isn't really big on hosts normally. However, Sleeper agreed to bond with Hank in secret in order to protect him as a favor to Flash Thompson. Flash recruited Hank to be a part of a security detail. Suspicious of what Carnage might be up to, Flash and Hank basically worked security for Senator Peter Crane. Flash thought that the Senator might have become overtaken by the Carnage symbiote, who was planning to use the Senator to get close to and assassinate the president. Basically, they were trying to make sure the Senator didn't get overtaken by Carnage, but then at one point they were like, maybe he already has been. In the end, it was revealed that Crane's son, Arthur, was actually bonded with Carnage instead. Haha. Hank ends up being stabbed through by Carnage, but is saved by Sleeper, who then basically takes over for the host, sedating him so that Hank is none the wiser, and so that Hank can also rest as Sleeper helps him to recover. Sleeper and Toxin, who is bonded with Flash, work together to stop Carnage, with Hank later having pretty much much no recollection of this fight because he was sedated, so he was like, I don't know. And they were like, we'll just won't tell him he was bonded with the symbiote because, you know, it's kind of weird. Number 1. Chemokinesis. One of Sleeper's most interesting powers, of course Sleeper also has powers similar to all the other symbiotes, is their ability to produce various different chemicals which can be used for a variety of effects. Some other symbiotes can do things like produce acid, but none other symbiotes that I know of have chemokinesis on the same scale as Sleeper, so it's quite a cool and unique ability to see. Sleeper can use the chemicals it produces to burn its opponents or defend itself with acid-like emissions, or to manipulate others. It can sedate, knock out, elate, persuade a target, or even cause someone to hallucinate. Aside from that, it's also believed that Sleeper can use chemicals to manipulate the thoughts and emotions of targets, and even kind of like communicate with people telepathically using these chemicals, presumably. Sleeper can even insert ideas into the minds of those it chooses to affect, so like I said, it's pretty persuasive. Pretty powerful stuff, really. What do you find the most interesting when it comes to the symbiote known as Sleeper? Who do you think is the most powerful symbiote? What kind of adventures would you like to see Sleeper go on? Who or what would you like to see Sleeper bond to when it comes to, you know, a potential host? If they wanted a host at that time. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, remember to drink water, and of course, stay nerdy, YouTube.